ਸਤਨਾਮ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀਓ। ਜਬ ਜਰੀਐ ਤਬ ਹੋਏ ਭਸਮ, ਤਨ ਰਹਿ ਕਿਰਮ ਦਲ ਖਾਈ। ਕਾਚੀ ਕਾਗਰ ਨੀਰ ਪਰਤ ਹੈ, ਯਾ ਤਨ ਕੀ ਇਹ ਵਡਾਈ। ਜਬ ਜਰੀਐ ਤਬ ਹੋਏ ਭਸਮ, ਤਨ ਰਹਿ ਕਿਰਮ ਦਲ ਖਾਈ। ਕਾਚੀ ਗਾਗਰ ਨੀਰ ਪਰਤ ਹੈ, ਯਾ ਤਨ ਕੀ ਇਹ ਵਡਾਈ। ਕਾਹੇ ਭਈਆ ਫਿਰਤਾ ਫੂਲਿਆ ਫੂਲਿਆ। ਜਬ 10 ਮਾਸ ਉਰਦ ਮੁਖ ਰਹਤਾ, ਸੋ ਦਿਨ ਕੈਸੇ ਭੂਲਿਆ ਰਹਾਉ। ਜਿਉ ਮਦ ਮਾਖੀ ਤਿਉ ਸਠੋਰ, ਰਸ ਜੋਰ ਜੋਰ ਧਨ ਕੀਆ। ਮਰਤੀ ਬਾਰ ਲੇਹੋ ਲੇਹੋ ਕਰੀਐ, ਭੂਤ ਰਹਿਨ ਕਿਉ ਦੀਆ। ਦੇਹੁਰੀ ਲਓ ਬਰੀ ਨਾਰ ਸੰਗ ਭਈ, ਆਗੈ ਸੱਜਣ ਸੁਹੇਲਾ। ਮਰ ਘਟ ਲਓ ਸਭ ਲੋਕ ਟੰਬ ਭਿਓ, ਆਗੇ ਹੰਸ ਅਕੇਲਾ। ਕਹਿਤ ਕਬੀਰ ਸੁਨਹੁ ਰੇ ਪ੍ਰਾਣੀ, ਪਰੇ ਕਾਲ ਗ੍ਰਸ ਕੂਆ। ਝੂਠੀ ਮਾਇਆ ਆਪ ਬੰਧਾਇਆ, ਜੋ ਨਲਨੀ ਭ੍ਰਮ ਸੂਆ। ਝੂਠੀ ਮਾਇਆ ਆਪ ਬੰਧਾਇਆ, ਜੋ ਨਲਨੀ ਭ੍ਰਮ ਸੂਆ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, today's Pavan Pitra Hukamnama Sahib from Sachkhand Sri Harmandir Sahib is on Ang 654 by Bhagat Kabir Ji. Sangji, Bhagat Kabir Ji is that type of Bhagat that doesn't really dilly-dally around and just says it as it is. Bhagat Kabir Ji, if you read their Bani, read their words, they can be very sarcastic as well. But within that sarcasm is such a deep message. And behind everything Bhagat Ji is saying, there is compassion sitting behind it. And that is very important for us to be able to realize that compassion behind where Bhagat Kabir Ji is speaking from. So today Bhagat Kabir Ji is bringing to our attention and reminding us that what is just gonna happen, and that's something that we just cannot avoid. So Bhagat Kabir Ji said, kende jab jariya, jab means when, jariya means burn. Kende jab jariya tab hoye pasam, kende when we burn what? They're referring to this body. Bhagat Kabir Ji is talking about that time that is gonna happen, which is what? Which is death, which the end of this body is going to come. And they say once that this person dies, what's going to happen to this body? It's either one of two things. They said it's either going to be burnt, those people within this world that actually cremate, say when it's going to be burnt, what's going to happen to it then? What's going to be left of this body? This is tab hoye pasam. They said it's going to be just ash that is left. Pasam means ash. Dust ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਮ ਕਰਕੇ, we normally say dust. It's very rare that we actually use the term ash. So ਪਾਤ ਜੀ ਕਹਿਣ ਲੱਗੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤਨ ਰਹਿ ਕਿਰਮ ਦਲ ਖਾਈ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤਨ ਰਹਿ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ but if your body is not burnt, then what's the other thing people do? People then bury. Then tan rahe. So if your body is kept, then even still then, there's still, if it's not going to become ash, then what's going to happen to it? Kiram. Kiram means worms. Dal. A army. Dal means army. An army of worms will come and khai and will consume and eat that body. So Bhagat Kabir ji, sometimes, you know, especially in Punjabi households, ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀਆਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨਾ ਕਰੋ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਕਾਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ and people often in Punjabi households they'll say, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ oh why are you speaking of things like that, don't speak of such things. And as soon as you start saying that, if you ever say in front of your parents ਹਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਮਰ ਗਿਆ ਨਾ, and if you say, you know, when I die, they'll say, oh ਨਾ ਪੁੱਤ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਬੋਲਦਾ ਹੈ, and they'll say, why are you speaking such words? And these parents could be Amritari. These parents, Sangat Ji, could be on a path themselves. But as soon as you say those words, they're like, no, what are you speaking like that for? It's like there's that fear inside. As soon as you speak about death, it's going to come to you. It doesn't quite work like that, Sangat Ji. Paatshah Ji ਇੱਥੇ ਤੇ ਕਹੇ ਭਗਤ ਕਬੀਰ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੱਚ ਇਹ ਆ ਸਮਾਂ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਖੁੱਲ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਿਆ ਕਰੋ. Instead, this is something that we should be very open about. There shouldn't be any fear behind this. So we should be open about, look, this is the truth. Isn't that what's going to happen to this body that we're so attached to? We've got so much pride over. Somebody's got pride over this body because of their looks, because of how they look. But asal vich Paatshah ji ਇੱਥੇ ਭਗਤ ਕਬੀਰ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੜ ਜਾਣਾ ਤਾਂ ਸੜ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਸਵਾਹ ਹੋ ਜਾਣੀ ਆ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਦਬਾ ਦੇਣਾ ਤੇ ਦਬਾ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹਨੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਰਮਾਣੇ ਖਾ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੈਸੇ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹਦਾ ਕੁਝ ਰਹਿਣਾ. So Paatshah ji is saying to us, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਾਚੀ ਗਾਗਰ. Gaggar means a pitcher that was used to carry water in. But here they're talking about a kachi gaggar, meaning a gaggar, a pitcher that has been made out of clay. So meaning, even though it's translated as unbaked, but it is baked, but it's not pakki, meaning that it's not something that is unbreakable. We know that it ain't going to take long for that to break down, for it to actually break. So it might be only baked to a certain level. So Paatshah kende kachi gagar, and in that same way, this picture of our body is in that same way. It's like that picture that is made out of clay and it hasn't been baked to a point where it's never going to break, because we know this body is not unbreakable and it will break. And I always use the famous pangtiyan that where Paatshah say that kaha bisasa is pande ka itna ka lage thanka. Paatshah saying, what faith can we hold within this body? Obviously we can't. They said it's just going to take a little thanka. Thanka means a little tap here, a little flicker here. What is that little tap for us? What is that little flicker for us? It's going to be very different things for all of us. That kachi gagar, neer parta hai. Paatshah saying neer parta hai, meaning that when you fill this gagar up with water, that eventually it cannot remain. The water will actually break down that clay pitcher and it will end up having holes in it eventually because of that water. And then because it's kachi, because it's close to being unbaked, and then it'll end up having holes in it, the water will start to seep through eventually, and to a point where, Sangat Ji, that it will have no water left in it and it will just be an empty pitcher then. And that kada eventually will just break. In that same way, we've got, there's water. And what is that water inside of us? That is the water of breath. Eਵੇਂ ਹੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਪਿਆਰਿਓ ਇਹ ਸਾਹ ਨੇ. We've got these breath inside of us. But ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਹ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਉਹ ਘਟਦੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ. But the breath that we've got inside of the picture of this body, they are reducing, because this picture is not permanent. So what happens is these breaths are going one by one. And eventually when the water finishes, when the breath finishes, that means, and then the soul goes on, the picture, the body, gone, it breaks. So meaning that it won't remain, either it will be burnt or it will be buried. So just like Bhatji say to us in Sohila Sahib, why do we read Sohila Sahib Sangat Ji before we go to bed? Because it's a reminder of death. Because what we're saying is this sleep that we're going to have, especially when that sleep goes into skopti meaning into deep sleep, where we have no awareness whatsoever, when it goes even deeper than the dreaming state, so supan, and then when we have no awareness at all. So Sangat Ji, just in that way, they said that is called a mini death. And that's why we read Sohila Sahib, and we're reminding ourselves, just like I'm going to enter into this mini death for a few hours, that this one day is going to come that I'm going to have a permanent sleep where I'm never going to wake up from that again. That's why we say to ourselves in Sohila Sahib, we say, Aud kata dinas ran ave. We're saying oud means our age. Age here, we can translate that. What is our age based on? Is on our breaths. So he's saying oud kata means reducing. So our breaths are reducing one by one. Oud kata dinas the day, dinas ranare, and the day is turning into night, meaning our life is passing by. And so what does this all tell us? It tells us to become more aware. So looking at one more thing from Sohila Sahib, and Sangat Ji, that's why I repeat again and again, these baniyan are not mere something that we do as a ritualistic practice. It's something, actually, if we're reading Sohila Sahib to our children as well, depending on how old those children are, we can start making them more aware of death. And it's not something scary, and it's not going to, it's not going to be tormenting for them. So Sangat Ji, it's like my own children, look at Jagraj Singh Ji's children, they were exposed to Veer Ji when he passed away at such a young age. But look, when I was growing up, we were told to children were never allowed to go to funerals. But I think my little one, Tegbir, he was probably about 5 years old when Jagraj Singh's funeral happened, and because it was explained to him, and he had a lot of awareness about the whole what is going on. So as the children start growing up, we can bring this to their awareness. Why are we reading Sohila Sahib? Because in Sohila Sahib there's a psychology behind it. So some people, they actually do a practice before going to sleep. So just like we have been given Sohila Sahib to recite, but other people from other walks of life, some yogis, what they teach, you could say, teach to their disciples, they'll say, so it's the same concept. The concept is the same. So they'll say, as you are falling asleep, that you take a breath in and just acknowledge in your mind that I am not this body. And as you then take a breath out, then you remind yourself and you just say, acknowledge within your mind, I am not my thoughts. So I am not the mind, I am not the body. So breath in, I am not the body. Breath out, I am not my thoughts. So because it's taking you beyond that, what is going to come to an end. It is taking you beyond this body that is limited with time, depending on the breaths. So Sangat Ji, that's what Sohila Sahib is doing for us. It's doing the same psychology as a yogi tells their disciples, that I am not this, but actually I am that. I am that part of that supreme soul. I am an Atma. So that's why in Sohila Sahib, Sangat Ji, it's not something we just read and then we yes, it is a protection as well, and it puts us in this cocoon of Guru Shabad. But the deeper aspect of it is, it's an awakening about death. So it's reminding us so we don't start living in this la la land that I'm here forever and get all caught up in the pride of this body. So Sangaji, in Suhela Sahib Pachi will say to us, Kende Sambat Saha Likhya Milkar Pab Ho Tel. So Sangaji, why is it then that we still end up having to take, advice of other people, having to go to counselors, having to go to this, having to go to that, is when our then practice becomes empty. So instead of allowing it to awaken us and become our therapy, and not in a negative way because we're struggling in life needing therapy, but it's a constant therapy. Our Guru's Bani is saying Sambat Saha Likhya Milkar Pab Ho Tel. What does that even mean? Sambat means date. Saying so, Sambat means date. Saha is referring to that date that is fixed. So meaning Saha was a chitti, was a letter that was written from the girl side, and it was when two people were going to get married, just before, sometimes assume that you know what I'm on about. And so it's when a marriage is going to take place, so from the girl side family, a letter was written that this is the date of the marriage, and it said in there that we're looking forward to it, and they'll put a bit of poetry in there. But one thing that was put in that letter is, so now, no matter what happens, if there's a storm, if there's whatever, if somebody dies in your family, whatever happens, it does not matter. These two people will be getting married on this day, and nothing is going to change that. So that's what Asahid Chitti meant. And then that was taken over from the girl side to the boy side, and then whoever has brought it over, they will present it in front of all the Sangat or all the boy side family, and they'll read that letter out. And normally this was done in the presence of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So I've actually, I've been a part of these, so I know about this very well growing up. And then somebody reads it out, and then they read out that date. Aha samaya a sambatya jo marji ho jave is din te vyah hona hi hona hai. So Sangat Ji, it is a fixed date. It's Sache Paatshah saying to us, Kende Sache Paatshah saying to us that our date is fixed for death, meaning that we cannot escape death, and one day our breaths will run out, and one day that day will come for us. The date is not fixed in the sense of 24th of October 2040. No, it's not fixed in that way. So it just means that it's fixed, meaning that you cannot avoid it. It's gonna happen. So Sangaji Sambat Saha Likhya. So as I've thrown that in now, and hopefully your experience of Suhela Sahib could be a different experience, and it could be a realization. I'm going to go into this mini death today as I sleep, and one day I'm going to go to such a sleep where I'm not going to awake from again. So just like Bhagat Kabir Ji, they say to us, Kende ek din sovan hoego. Jo kende ek din, kende that day is going to come when you're going to sleep such a sleep. Kende lambe god pasar, kende lambe god pasar, kende ek din sovan hoego. Kende such a day is going to come when you are going to sleep. Kende, because Kabir Ji say to us, Kende ek din sovan hoego lambe god pasar. Kende, why don't you wake up and meditate on Waheguru Ji's name? Because one day you're going to have your legs stretched out and you're going to sleep such a sleep where you're never going to come back out of it. So death is not a conversation to avoid. Death is not negative. Death is just a part of Waheguru Ji's nature. Just as beautiful as looking at a tree on a leaf change colors is, as it from that lush green, and we accept that from being lush green, that these changes are inevitable and they come as the season changes, as the position of this earth changes, of how it's facing the sun. In that way, the colors of that leaf is going to change. It's going to go from being green to brown to falling off that stem. Sangaji, and we look at that as the beauty of nature, and then we wait for it to come back again in the season of spring. So Sangaji, in that same way is death. So we should talk about it openly. So because Guru Sahib Ji is talking to us about it openly as we're about to go to sleep at night, so they're saying to us, kende katti janda tera sama. So our Bhagat Kabir Ji saying to us, kende kachi kagar neer parat hai ya tan ki eh hai badai. Kende this is the badai. Kende is that it? Meaning, is that it? Is that the greatness of your body? That one day, that body that you think you've got so much pride in, that's all it is. They said the breaths are going to run out and it's going to break. Kan lage kende kahe paiya fir to phulya. Kende, why are you wandering around? Kende fir to phulya. Sangaji, this is a Punjabi saying again. पंजाबी कहंदे हाँ बड़ा फुल्लिया फिरदा आ कहंदे की कला अज तक कहंदा बड़ा फुल्लिया लगदा है. And what that means is when somebody is, really puffed up in pride and really pumped about themselves. And Bhagat Kabir Ji saying कहंदे जब 10 मास उर्द मुख रहता कहंदे जब when 10 means 10, मास means months, urd means upside down, Mukh, your face, Kende was upside down, meaning you was facing down. That would probably be a much better way of translating it. When you was facing down, Kende rehta, so then kaise pulya, Kende, have you forgotten about that day when you were just hanging upside down in your mother's womb? Meaning obviously we may not consciously remember it in that way. I actually knew somebody that had such a memory that could actually remember when they were in their mother's womb. So Sangaji, but Bhagat Kabir Ji saying, remember it. There was a time when you was in your mother's womb, you was hanging upside down. And saying that now that you think so much of yourself and of this body, you'd actually look down at other people just because of their looks and just because of the way you are. You might have pumped up your body with bodybuilding or whatever else, and then you kind of look at other people, look down at them and say, oh, look at you. Forgetting about where we've all come from. Rahao means to pause and reflect. And then Patji saying to us, Jo madmaki tyo sathor ras. Just like a Jo madmaki. Mad means honey. Maki is talking about those wasps, those bumblebees. And this is just like the bees. This is just like the bees go and collect the ras, the nectar out of the flowers, and little by little they go and collect that nectar and then they build it up. And as they build it up, Sangaji, creating that beautiful honey, they said in that same way, we get caught up in this life of jor tan kiya. Little by little, all we're doing is we keep accumulating and saving up the wealth within this world. And some people, and for me, when I was reading this Shabad this morning and I thought, what is it for me? What is this Shabad saying for me? Kabir Ji then go on to say, Kende marti bar leho kariye. Kende, then you've been accumulating wealth all your life. You've been living in attachment of this Maya. You drop dead, and Kabir Ji say that what happens, Kende, then the people that you're so close to, and they'll say, oh, leho kariye. They're saying, lajo inno, take the body away. Why? Because Poot Rahan Kyo Diya. Why are we going to end up allowing Poot? Sangat Ji here doesn't mean ghost. Poot here translates to body. They're saying, why are we going to just keep the body here? There's no point, is there? Quick, take the body out, take the body out. That same body that you had so much pride in, nobody's going to even want it there without your gender, without your actual soul being inside this body. It's the soul it's all about the soul. Without the soul, what are we? We're nothing. that same pride that we've got in this body, what is it? It's nothing without connecting to our soul, which is the truth, which is the true beauty. And because why? They start thinking, the other arth to is bhoot. Because they're thinking, say if that whoever's died now, and say if now they've become a ghost and they're lurking around here, and these are the type of fears people would have. They said, say if now that they've not moved on and now they've become a ghost, and say if they're still lurking around in the house, and say if they try and come inside of us, and all these crazy fears. So they're saying, get them out, get them out. These are the people that we did so much for. These are the same people that we lived in a certain way because of them. Sangaji, wow, this has just answered such an amazing situation and question for me that was going on in my life. And I'm sorry I shared that out loud, because I can't actually share what the actual situation is, but I just had a little moment of realization there, that sometimes we end up living in a certain way with certain people in our own lives, not realizing that that moment of death's going to come. They're going to say, look, all right, get them out, and so it means there's things that we've got to do for ourselves to develop spiritually, and we can't hold back. We can't let other people hold us back from developing spiritually, Sangaji. There's certain things and steps we've got to take. And then Bhagat Kabir ji, if I can find where we are. Where are we? Bar leho kariye poot rehan kyo diya dehori lo bari nar sang pai. That wife, Dehuri Bari, so Bari here means, Dehuri means that she then walks out with you up to that doorstep, and then, so imagine if now, the people from the funeral place come, I can't remember what you call them, and when they come and collect your body, so make it more relatable for today, so that wife, she'll probably go up to the doorstep with you. Dehuri lo Bari Nar sang. Nar means your wife, Nar sang. But after that, pay aage sang pay, and then the bisram they at the pay. Then aage sajjan suhela. But then after that, it's whoever else. And back in the days, obviously, the wife would walk up to a certain point, and then the rest, then whoever it would be, your friends, your sajjans, your relatives, they would take over and carry your body. And from that point, that's it. The funeral people, they take you away, and she's just there. She only came up to the door with you. Then markat means that place, the cremation ground, and then all the relatives come and gather where you're going to be cremated now. All the people that knew you, they all gather, your kutamba, your family. But this Hans, meaning the soul, the Jeev, that because Sangaji, this, I'll have to do a separate katha one day on what is it that actually travels. And we often just say the soul travels, but that's not accurate, because Paramatma, the soul, doesn't travel. The soul just is. It's something called the Jeev Atma that travels. So in very, very simple terms, all you need to understand it is there's a subtle body that carries all our karma, and that then goes on and that travels. Okay, so kende then Hans if kende agge chal janda ya, kende agge Hans akela. We have to do that journey on our own. Nobody can assist us in that journey when we leave this body. Kahat Kabir suno re prani. Kabir ji saying, can they listen, oh prani? Sunoho means here, look, Sangaji, this is second person, haha, no onkad. He's saying, you guys, listen to me. Re prani, everyone that has got breath inside of them, pran means breath, e means inside, jere andar vi saaya, kende suno re prani, hey, re means hey. One day, no matter how much you try, you're going to end up falling to avoid it. You will fall into the kuwa, into that dark pit, grass, you will fall of call of death. Kende jhoothi maya aap bandhaya. Kende Bhagat Kabir ji saying, you yourself have ended up entangling yourself in that false maya, in that what is not going to remain here. You become so entangled in it, bandaya, you've bound yourself to it. Just like jo nalani pram just like a suwa, a parrot, has been deceived and tricked, and pram, and this the actual parrot has got param, is tricked into thinking nalani, into that trap that has been set up for it to drink water. But it's actually a trap that is set up for it when it goes in there to drink the water. But once it gets hold of that, where the water is held, then it cannot let go of it, otherwise it's going to fall. So Sangat Ji, in that same way, and that parrot, it was all a trap, and then it's caught and it's been put in a pinjara, it's been put in a cage for the rest of its life. Sangat Ji, what can we take from this? We can take from this that day is going to come one day. It could be today. And how would we live if we know that we've got 7 days left? If we got past the whole thing of freaking out, ma mar jana, of that I'm going to die. So we're not in that mode. Okay, we've come to terms with it. All right, we've been told you've definitely only got 7 days left. And you know, it's a famous story, isn't it? Ke 7 din reh gaye. Guru Gobind Singh Ji Paat Ji did this to a few Gursikhs as well. You know, told him that this is how that you've got only a certain amount of days left. Guru Sahib Ji said to somebody once, they said, tere tu inne dina de vich muk jana. You're gonna die in this amount of days. And this person was so caught up in he was so particular in the type of foods he ate, and he was so particular in what he wore. He was so caught up in all of this, and his own, you know, in his looks, in his food, and everything else but the truth. When Guru Gobind Singh Ji said this to him, he freaked out. He lived for those next few days, he lived in such a way. Anybody that he had hurt, from first he forgave them. From inside he let go of that grudge. And then he obviously he told them as well that, you know, I forgive you, or whatever it is. And then, you know, those same foods that he was so like wrapped up in, he didn't care anymore. And he rose above all of these things, these petty things that he was caught up in. So for us, Sangat Ji, how would we live really if we knew that we've only got this much time left? The truth is we should really know that we are only one breath, and it could happen any moment, but we don't live like that. So just set yourself a thing. If I had 7 days left, how would I really want to live? You know, would I want to let go of grudges? Would I want to spread more joy and happiness? What would I want to be? Would I want to get to know my soul more? That one that is going to remain with me? Would I want to go past these barriers of the body and the thoughts and contemplate that, Sangat Ji, today on, would I want to be more loving with my children? Would I want to let go of the little things that I get angry about? Because I know I would. These are all the things I would want to do. Because that's what I would want to take with me. Because we take all our karma with us. So every little thing that we do in life is being accounted for. We're going to be carrying that energy with us. What energy do we want to leave with if we had 7 days left? I'll leave you with that thought, Sangat Ji. So, इतनी बेनतियां प्रवान, एक नहीं अनेक का ही गलतियां हो गई हन, अनजान बच्चा समझ के बख्श देना. So Sangat Ji, don't let anyone become the reason of allowing you to grow spiritually, whether that mean if you want to forgive someone, don't let somebody let you hold on to that grudge. If you want to start getting up at a certain time, whatever it is, just think about, contemplate this hukamnama, because the same people that we're doing it for is going to say, look, when are we going to get their body out of here? Because they're going to freak out. We're going to be on our own on that journey. What do we want to take with us? What do we want to take with us when we're traveling on our own? That's the $1 million question. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.